Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. Today we are counting down the top 5 cringiest moments for Meghan Markle in 2024. Safe to say this last year was full of low points for Meghan, quite frankly. And the woman could easily be just defined as cringy in general. Making social errors all the time and speaking in cliches is her MO, and it's not great. It creates cringy content, cringy reactions. Coming in at number 5, in an attempt to channel her late mother-in-law in Nigeria, the Meg got right in the face of this intimidated little girl who literally looked forced to participate in a really great example of how not to interact with kids. Because Meghan's outfit in this scenario was so wrong, such the wrong choice, she was unable to just squat down to make eye contact and engage with the child in a welcoming and appropriate manner. Instead, she bent at the waist and put her face right in this child's face. Pictures like this surfaced, and it really defeated the purpose of the entire engagement, where she was supposed to be sharing a flower with this little girl, and it was going to be these sweet, nice pictures where it was going to send children's princess vibes the way she thought it would in her head with her Diana obsession, but instead she looked completely aggressive towards this child. Because putting your face in their face when you're bent down like this, coming from above, is kind of aggressive. For a lot of children, that's the way they're scolded by a parent or a teacher, is they bend down and are meh, meh, meh. So it just really didn't look nice, and the girl looked really intimidated by it and uncomfortable, so it totally ruined the vibe. It looked awful, bad pictures, bad PR, but it also makes the case for dressing appropriately, making proper choices with your clothing for these events. This was an outdoor volleyball match type thing, and for whatever reason she wore this. It was a fail, among many, from the Nigeria trip. At 4th place peak cringe for 2024, hug after hug after hug after hug after hug. The Meg's clingy behavior just won't quit. As we've seen Harry pull back from this year and apparently protest it, like what we saw in the Jane Pauley interview, where as Jane Pauley was asking Meghan Markle about her mental health crisis, and Jane Pauley said, it was clearly a scripted situation, said, as you're holding your husband's hand like I knew you would, they weren't holding hands. The Meg was just touching Harry's knee. It was so awkward and strange. And Harry just didn't react at all, just sat there with his hands clasped, leaning away from Meghan. It was horrible. It was a horrible display. But Meghan was just touching him. She's migrated to just holding her hand out and touching people. She thinks that's going to work better than clinging to their hands. I don't know. The claw. She's trying to avoid the claw. And instead she's got I don't even know what you would call it. Just the tentacle reached out and touching people. That's what she's been doing in 2024. But we've also seen her get increasingly touchy with everyone else in her orbit. Remember the gala? What? Acting like preteens on the red carpet is just not cute. It's weird. Or this moment with a near stranger at the G9 summit. Why is your tentacle touching her? Why? Why are you touching this lady? What is happening? Or how she repeatedly hugged the vice president of Colombia 6 times within a span of just a few hours. It's too much. It's over the top. Bleh. Coming in at number 3 lowest point of 2024 for Meghan Markle was when she claimed herself to be the most bullied person in the world. At a Girls Inc. event, surrounded by young girls, at this event that was meant to be an inspiring day. Why? How extreme, first off. That's just a weird thing to say no matter who you are. And we learned this lesson in grade school, that saying you're the most in the world of anything, whether it be negative or positive, just reeks of teenage apathy and self-centeredness. It never comes across good. We all learn to grow out of that. Speaking in absolutes is a sign of a more toxic person. And that's exactly what this is. Speaking in the absolute, that she's the most. You can't argue that, now can ya? But in this context of this particular event, made it all the more silly and laughable and just bizarre, poor judgment, which leads me to the second lowest point of Meghan's year, where she was called out, again, for you guessed it, bullying behavior herself. The Hollywood Reporter and Daily Beast combined spoke to over a dozen former and current employees of the Meg to get an idea of how she is in the workplace, and it was anything but flattering. Armed with signed affidavits that their account of working with the Meg is true, Even if you take those reports with a grain of salt, which by all accounts are very reliable and well sourced, it's horrible press for the Meg. Just awful. Outing her as very harsh, difficult to deal with, just not a great human being. It only served to confirm the public's view of the Meg that she is, in fact, unnecessarily difficult, bossy, unpleasant, demanding, narcissistic, and a bully. Nobody's shocked, but it's damning nonetheless. Very embarrassing moment for Meghan this fall, and she really retreated after this. She wasn't seen out and about very often, and it coincided with the same time of the year that we saw Harry and Meghan really pivot to doing things separately. So a lot of people think it's coming from Harry's end. A lot of people think the Meg was sort of like, I don't want to do anything else because everybody keeps talking rude about me. Either way, it was horribly embarrassing and a really, really low point for Meghan this year. But at her absolute most cringiest moment, most embarrassing endeavor, worst thing that happened in 2024 for the Meg, peak cringe, we have the entire American Riviera Orchard Montecito debacle. Launched with what appears to be the sole purpose of competing with a royal family event, the Meg hastily released a teaser to this ill-thought-out, chaotic endeavor of this business plan, we guess, as well as some numbered jams sent to people. The whole thing was chaotic and embarrassing from the start. The branding was awful and all wrong, as we called from day one. This branding was bland, dry, lacking personality, much like the Meg. Just not good. It wasn't memorable. It didn't stand out. It was fussy and overdone and never going to succeed with branding like this. It's just not, especially with the branding trends coming into 2024, 2025 and beyond. Consumers want simplicity, streamlined, really, really simple logos, very clear, clean lines, minimalist branding is what we're moving towards. The Meg did the opposite. Big mistake. Clearly no research or thought put into it beforehand. And of course, it failed to actually come together and come to anything. Just nothing has happened with this except for setback after setback after setback. Nearly a full year after this ill-thought-out launch, it's still not off the ground. It's been plagued with trademark rejections, challenges to the name she chose, the logo is inadequate. It not only appears doomed to fail, but is a very high-profile, embarrassing attempt on the Meg's part. She couldn't even find a CEO for it. She had to take the role herself as CEO. Even the numbered jams situation ended up an embarrassing flop for her, with only about a dozen of the purported 50 recipients of this jam actually making a social post about it, with a lot of people not even admitting to receiving it at all, and a lot of people viewing it as a sort of toxic thing or a manipulative thing of like numbering your friends and things like that. It created this whole thread of weirdness. But ultimately, at the end of the day, American Riviera Orchard Montecito has been a display of Meghan's ineptitude, her lack of business acumen, her narcissism clearly getting the best of her, and she's been revealed as a phony, and even seems to have copied Highgrove, Royal Crests, and branding as well as Flamingo Estate in her venture, being far from an original idea. One of the problems with copying things is that you don't have the passion behind it to actually execute and put in the massive amount of work it takes to get something like this up and off the ground and established. No wonder it hasn't worked out. Well, it's been a rough year for the Meg. Better luck in 2025, I guess. Leave it in the comments below what you think her peak cringe in 2024 was. I cannot wait to read your opinions there. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye!